All right, folks, welcome to another photo critique from the Digital Photo Rec. I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
And, each week we critique a set of images from this group. Again, just have a blast looking through here. Some of you are commenting on each other's work. I really appreciate that. A lot of amazing images. Tonight we each just picked 5 that we wanted to critique for whatever reason. Just a reminder that we have an assignment happening right now, a symmetry assignment. All of the details are in the first link below this video. Go take a look, but you are to take some pictures that represent symmetry. I see one right there. And upload those and tag them with a certain tag. They must be tagged for us to be able to pull them out. And we'll be talking about some of those next week. So let's get right into it and start with this first one that Christina picked.
So I picked this one because I really like the light. The light's really interesting to me. It looks like there's a storm coming, both in the clouds and just, it seems like it's starting to get, to the time where it's like sunset, but I don't know. There's just like a really interesting mood that the current available light gives, and I really love the smoothness of the water. I love the colors of this image. I love the two people because they give us a sense of perspective of how big these houses are, and how big this space is. So it's just really cool. I wish the horizon line was a little bit straighter. Other than that, I think it's a very strong image. There's so many interesting things to look at. And let me see if it says where this was taken. It doesn't say. It says the water chalet, but yeah, very nice job. Nicely done.
Malaysia.
Someplace
in Malaysia. And it looks like maybe it was an HDR.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Interesting. So.
Well, that's very cool because it was an HDR that, you can't really tell that it's an HDR. So basically what you did was just retain all the detail and the highlights and the shadows. So yeah, nicely done. Very cool.
Good. I don't have anything to add other than that is the type of HDR that I usually most appreciate. The ones where when you first look, you don't necessarily know that it's an HDR, but that was used to give you just a much larger range from light to dark than you would by taking a single image. So this is nice. I might maybe say shoot a little bit even longer of a shutter speed and really smooth out the water, get rid of those people, but you liked...
I like the people.
You like the people there. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Narazim. 10. Let's just continue plowing through yours.
Sure. I love the contrast of this image. There's not a whole lot of like pure whites and blacks, but the contrast in color. And I like the simplicity of it, even though there are lots of elements, lots of little pieces that make up the photo, like the geometric lines and the origami, as well as these lentils. I really like the simplicity and minimalism of it, even though there are so many elements. I think that the colors, the use in color, really simplifies the image. So that's kind of what appeals to me about it. I don't know that I would do anything differently. I mean, the composition's really strong. I think it's shot from an angle that, kind of makes it abstract, but you can still tell what's in the image. I really like this image.
Nice. I think the colors here are fantastic. And it maybe it was, bumped up a little bit in post-processing or not, I don't know. But my point being that it doesn't look like it. It's very vibrant, but still looks realistic to me. And I think, offers some nice contrast. And we don't have any metadata for this, but, I think a good depth of field or, a fairly small aperture was used here because we have a good depth of field. We really don't start to get some softening until up in this corner. So shot at that slight angle. But overall, very nice. Nice image. Thank you, Marjan. I won't even try for that last name.
So this is an image that I was drawn to, I think, because of, well, I do find it interesting that it's sideways. I think my instinct, if I'd taken the image, would have been to have it upright as a portrait. But it adds visual interest to have it sideways, in my opinion. I really love the composition, and I love the expression on this woman's face. I think that it's very hard. It's really challenging to work with subjects, to try to get them to really relax in front of you and give you a very good natural expression, especially when you're asking them to pose. This person was very obviously comfortable with you, and you were able to make her very comfortable in front of the camera. So I think that's what draws me to this image more than anything. I also kind of like the treatment of it. I like that you tone down the colors. I think that it would be too much if it were oversaturated or had a lot more contrast. I kind of like that it's grayed out a little bit. I think if I were to do anything differently with this image, I would maybe just try to bring her elbow in just a little bit more so that you don't cut it off. I don't think it's such a huge deal, but I think it would make a stronger image, just cutting off limbs like that. It doesn't seem like it was on purpose. But again, just a matter of personal opinion. And then maybe that button at the bottom, and that's, I'm getting like super, super picky there. But yeah, this could be a really cool editorial image. You could probably add some, text. If it were upright, you could add some text here, or even sideways like this, you could add some text this way here. So
Editorial meaning something that could be used in a print magazine,
in a print magazine,
or
right?
an advertisement.
Yeah, you could very easily add text around this. So it was, yeah, very nice.
The only thing I have to add is that the angle of her chin is such that there's not quite enough definition here, and we lose some of that in the neck. And so I've been sitting here looking at that and starting to look a little strange to me. So maybe if she had lifted her chin up just a little bit and gotten a little bit more definition, so we clearly had body, neck, head, I think it may work stronger for me. But I too like the treatment very much. I'm usually not a fan of this kind of soft filtered or desaturated images, but I think in this case it works very nicely with the blues and the greens and the yellows. So overall, really nice. Thank you, Alicia. Alicia. I don't know why I try to say people's names because I do it so poorly often. All right, now we have, well, here, let's start. Derek. Mr. D.
Ooh, okay, so I picked this image also. I'd forgotten. I really like this photo reminds me of that very iconic image of the workers on the beam sitting eating lunch. I just really love how simple this black and white image is, and I like that because of the contrast in the blacks and the whites, it's really obvious to me what the subject is, and there are hardly any other distractions that really pull my eyes away, even though you can still get a hint of a little bird here and another pigeon here, and then some stuff here. It's just so, the contrast is so strong right over here that is where my eye falls. I like the crop a lot. I think the crop works really well with this. I think if I might take it a step further and then crop even a little bit more up here, maybe even some down here, just to make it kind of a panoramic image. I think that would be cool, but that's just me. Other than that, I like, I would say something about the horizon, but I kind of like it like this. I think it works well with this image, the kind of imbalance from left to right, because there's so many birds here and then there's just this lone bird, so it makes sense that this is kind of up high, kind of balances all the stuff that's going on over here, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's why I picked this image.
I'll just add that I think it's a very cool image too, and your metadata is missing some information there. The computer's a little confused about your focal length in your aperture, but it does have your shutter speed and ISO, so I'm curious how that happened. I do wonder if there's any post-processing here, but I really do like how high contrast this is. The birds are either basically like stark white, almost, or completely negative, and I think that works well in this image. One thing that is bothering me a little bit is that that we are having some rough edges.
Ghosting, yeah, there seems to be a little bit of ghosting.
And that could be from the lens used. Oh, maybe you're using an older manual style lens that wasn't communicating any information to the camera. That's what I'm going to guess is happening here. And that older style lens is giving this kind of, well, let's call it a neat effect, pre-processing, because you're using a lens that then doesn't do so well in this harsher setting. But I think it's a neat image. Thank you. And the last one that Christina picked this evening.
Okay, so I picked this image because I am really liking the emotion, and you know, I think Kavan. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but you've submitted a couple of other images, and I believe they're all self-portraits. And if not they're not self-portraits, then you certainly have talent at communicating what you want people to do in front of the camera. But I'm just going to assume that it's a self-portrait. Let me see if there's anything that says. It is a 365 project, so I'm just going to assume that it's a self-portrait. And honestly, I feel like it's really difficult to put yourself out there and just express yourself and make a creative conceptual image. And you know, I admire that, and I think that this image is very, very emotive, and it's a really cool image of that. And it looks like you did some cool stuff with a smoke machine. And this location itself, it looks like an alley with lots of orange and brownish kind of vines. So that's really cool. And then the light in your face is also really nice. It's very nice directional light. So this looks like an image that took a lot of planning, a lot of thinking, and I just really like it. And I guess the only thing that I can see that I may say to do differently next time, it's just not to cut off the arms, but I'm gonna guess that one of your hands was probably holding a clicker to fire off the camera if it was a self-portrait. And then secondly, I bet that you cut off the arms just to further move your theme and your the message that you were trying to move across. So yeah, I really enjoy looking at this image. In terms of the composition, there's a lot of elements that balance the photo out. I may have cropped a little bit here, just a teeny tiny bit, so you're a little bit higher up on the frame, in the frame. But you know, it's really difficult to get yourself even in focus when you're taking a self-portrait. Believe me, I've tried, and it takes multiple shots. So yeah, so great image. I really, really enjoyed looking at it. Thank you for submitting it.
I think it's a very cool image. A couple of things that come to mind. One is that I've wanted to do this with us for a while now. Trigger trap. Actually, if you've got it, trigger trap is a way to trigger your camera. One of the modes that they have as an option is the scream trigger, or sound actually. And they go to photo shows and they set up as part of their little booth kind of a demo room where you can scream, and when you hit a certain decibel level, the camera snaps a picture. So that's kind of what looks like it's happening here, except he's done much better. I think this is great. I almost wonder if it's a composite.
I did wonder that too.
If this all was in the same place at the same time, or if this is multiple images put together in Photoshop. I'm going to just treat it as one image. Really, the only other critique I have, or the suggestion I have to add, other than the cropping, is that this keeps distracting me right here. These vines coming up and out of the smoke, being yellow, and being separated from everything else keeps grabbing my eye. And I think cloning a little bit of smoke and putting it over top of that would help a lot. But otherwise, I think this is great. Focus here on your face or the subject's face.
Just spot on.
And the emotion is very nicely done. So thank you for that. All right, now I went through and picked a couple of them. These are the ones I've picked. And I just picked ones that grabbed my eye for the same reason that Christina picked, I think. She liked what she saw and thought it would be a nice image to critique. So this one grabbed my eye because of this really cool repetition of the circles of this kind of, I think this is what they call that Frenzel lens, or Frenzel lens that they use on lighthouses to really make that light shine out through. The color here and the repetition is really nice. I like that. I also like the contrast of this green and the sky in the background. I even read your little blurb there, Digital Canvas 72, and you were trying for that. What is taking away from this is that black bar that runs right down there. That keeps distracting me, and that needs to go. So you either got to crop in so that you're not including that, you're just including this. I think it would be just as strong an image even though it didn't have as much of the sky out there. I also would take a few moments and go ahead and clone out these little smudges that are probably on the window that you're shooting through, because they don't look like they're on the actual glass. I think you are shooting through a window and these are outside and you can kind of see the reflection. So I would take care of those. But otherwise, really nice colors, nice composition to try to include both of these things. And another thought would be to just shoot this straight on if that was possible and just have the green. But then we have a little bit less context of what we're seeing there. But that's nice. Thank you. All right, from Wesley, we have this flying lady. Yeah, I think this is neat, a neat image, but I think there are a couple things that could make it much stronger. One is, we talked about this on other critiques before, is to watch your cropping. She needs a little bit more room for me to get a sense that she's flying. In this image, I can't tell if she's a foot off the ground or 15 feet off the ground. And by pulling back just a little bit, it would give her some space and show me that she really is off the ground. Now, if I think about it, sure, she's off the ground because I see a light pole and she's kind of even with the top of it in the background. But that light pole is doing more to distract me by kind of intersecting right with her behind than to give me any kind of...
I just noticed that now I can't unsee it.
Yeah, sorry. So I think, changing your perspective just a little bit, moving, I think if you could move, and again, we always offer these suggestions. You could have been stuck in a crowd of people and this is the only perspective you got for this shot. But our job here is to say what we think would make this stronger image without knowing any of that. And I would give her a little bit more room and shift the perspective to the right a little bit, which could separate from the background. And you see, you're shooting at 135 f5.6, so that was the widest aperture. Another option, if you'd had another lens that could shoot at a wider aperture, is to shoot at that and give her a little bit of separation from the background with a softening or a shallower depth of field. But I think this was probably a neat place and a neat image, or it is a neat image, and I thank you for submitting, Wesley. All right, the golden hour. I mean, it's kind of your orange sunsets are quite popular to do, but there are a couple things that I liked about this image. One, the sun is off to the side, kind of following that rule of thirds here nicely. I think we could come down a little bit more. I don't know what's below the frame, but we have a lot of orange space up here. So I think we could lop off the top, if we're separating this orange space into three pieces, the top third of that, and really kind of put that sun in the top left of the tic-tac-toe grid. It's already on the left side, I like that. But what I really do like is these, completely in shadow hills here and this kind of layering. And I think lowering the frame a little bit and giving that a perspective.
Really, I feel like you could add even more sky.
Really?
And crop it up. Just move up all the way up here, all the way up to here. I prefer background over foreground in my images usually, so that's why I perceive it that way. But it's just really interesting to see, that two people can...
What I was hoping for in mine is that there's more layers of hill.
Oh,
I would agree that if this is all solid black in the foreground, then I would go with what you said, I think. Yeah,
I think either way would work. I thought that it was interesting how your perspective and is different from mine
Yep.
in terms of how to redo this image or modify this image.
something I do want to point out, Alan, and to those who are watching, or not to Alan because he took this picture, but this was shot at 180 millimeters on a crop sensor camera. So this is another great example of how you do not need a wide angle lens to capture cool landscapes. This is a cool landscape, a cool sunset or warm sunset, and
It's usually better to shoot with a zoom lens because it allows you to compress a lot of distracting elements.
exactly.
Unless you have a absolutely perfect location, free of distractions, with, you know, amazing, like just the scenery is just so amazing large, too large to capture, then I would just use a zoom lens. The other thing about using a zoom lens is that it not only compresses, but it makes the mountains, and when you're photographing a mountain and you're using a super wide angle lens, it makes everything look really small, a lot tinier than it looks in real life, whereas a zoom lens actually maintains the actual size so that you can get a better sense of scale. That's just been my experience when working with zoom lenses.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Lovely orange colors. All right, this is from Phil, called Jill. And the first thing that grabbed me is just, when I was thinking, I could pick a theme tonight. My theme would be spring, 'cause here in the northern hemisphere, spring is starting to spring, and it's a very exciting time of year.
I saw crocuses.
Christina saw crocuses today here in Vermont. But then I just picked a variety of different images. But I like this one for two reasons. One, the green and the yellow here are beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. It works well. And the depth of field here is nice. This was a full frame, 36 millimeters. This is a 17-40, which I talked about briefly in that road tripping package. Really nice lens to walk around, really great value lens. But what I can't decide, and I think I might put this out to you all as the question of the night, and this is something I still struggle with when photographing, and I do catering photography or food photography from time to time, and really kind of still haven't decided. The question is, how do you feel about a small amount of foreground elements being blurred or out of focus like in this? So in this example, it isn't until a few inches in, maybe 6 inches, maybe even a foot in, before we get that sharp focus in this image. And how do you feel about those foreground elements out of focus? I think they are more distracting than otherwise. And I would either shoot from an angle, maybe just a little bit higher to avoid those, so the area of out of focus would be below the frame, but then you're not going to catch as much of this nice perspective. Or, this is what I kind of call photoshopping in the wild, is take your hand and kind of gently press these down so they're out of the frame for a moment or two while you're taking the shot, and then let them spring up. I don't recommend going and pulling them all up, even though they are just dandelions. But somebody else wants to come along and enjoy this scene as well. So my question to you is, how do you feel about those out of focus foreground elements, specifically in this picture or in general? But overall, Phil, I think the composition here is great. And I made the comment of from a slightly higher perspective, but I think this is really nice. It's some pretty strong vignetting, which I think helps to give this image some depth, even though it's got it already. So it's nice. Did you want to add something, Christina? You're hand gesturing.
Well, I think that the foreground elements, I don't know, I think that because the dandelions are very clear, like there's no question in our mind of what the foreground elements that are out of focus are. So my brain isn't constantly wondering, like, what is this that I'm looking at that's slightly out of focus? There's obviously some dandelions right there in there that are in focus. I think my only modification would be just to crop in a little bit here. Maybe like take
A little bit on the right side.
Yeah, just so that this is a little bit more centered, because it's not centered or either off to the side. So Yeah, I think that would be my only modification. And I think I like the depth here. It's really interesting. It's like it almost looks like it was taken either with like a lens maybe, or it was free lensed, or it's very interesting.
Oh, free lensing. Maybe we should talk about that in our next podcast.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I think the composition is just kind of really accentuated the depth of field in this image. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, you're right.
Nice. I like it, and thank you. So the last image we're going to critique tonight is one I picked from Scott, and I actually looked at the tags after I picked it and noticed that it is tagged symmetry. I wasn't thinking about symmetry when I picked this. I was thinking about incredible detail in color. So this is an old rusted chain link fence. It said salt corrosion, so I wonder if it's near the sea. And the depth of field we have here, this is with the Sigma 35, Sigma 18 to 35 at f1.8. You know I'm a fan of that lens. The depth of field here is razor thin. You can see that even the back side of the fence. So when you think about a chain link fence, we usually think about it running in a pretty, in a plane, not having much width to it. But you know, it has a little bit of width, and the back side is even out of focus, and I like that here. But even more than that, what that allows is really your eyes focuses on these parts that are in focus and the incredible detail in them and the color. You got these kind of purples. I don't even know quite how to describe some of the other colors that are, I want to say magenta, but it's not magenta. Some violets, some browns, but all of those together make this image I think excellent. And we look at some of these detail pieces of the little cragginess that, you know, this thing looks like you could blow on it and it would completely fall apart.
That's what I was gonna say, that I just love the juxtaposition of like this material that's supposed to be really, really strong, and it looks so incredibly brittle and vulnerable to, you know, just the slightest amount of force to break.
Yep.
So it's
Great.
really cool.
Yep. So good. Scott, I think it's great. And Scott, you even said you can't decide if you'd like a little bit more depth of field to get the front and the back, but I think it's perfect.
Yep, I agree.
And it's really nice. And thank you so much. So thank you to all of you for submitting images this evening. Really appreciate you putting your work out there and allowing us to critique it. Keep on putting stuff up. We had a request for folks to be able to see us while we are critiquing. So we may work towards that, where we put up a little view of our faces, and you can see us frown at each other when we disagree, or smile when we agree, or nod our heads, things like that. So that might be coming down the road, but in the meantime, keep on putting your images up here. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.